Welcome to Fridays with Tab and Chance. I am Tabitha Brown.
And I'm Chance. What's up?
Bring the beat in. Fridays, Fridays with Tab and Chance. Ba-dum-bum-bum. Fridays, Fridays with Tab and Chance. I was trying something different. You don't like it? Because last time you said my note was to, so I was trying to bring it.
Always one.
With Tab and Chance. Wait a minute. And the robot don't even work for that. Welcome to Fridays with Tab and Chance. Today we are talking about, well, actually, do we have a name, Tiff, or no? We got so many requests for this topic, so we might not have a name. But if you requested it, it's for you. So many of y'all asked us to talk about discipline, like when it comes to how do you discipline your children, how did we get disciplined, and how has that changed now as we're parents? And so I was like, you know what, let's talk about it. Honey, I'm gonna go ahead and start off. I actually wish we could have did this. My daddy gonna be here a little bit later. It would have been great to have my daddy part of this conversation. I'm gonna go ahead and say, and I know this without the shadow of a doubt, that me and Chance are blessed and lucky to still be sitting here in front of you with some of the ways that we got beat when we was kids.
Don't put that on my mom.
I know for a fact that we are blessed to still be sitting here. Never would have made it. Honey, the Lord had to have had his hand on us.
Two of them like that. Hey, come here, boy. She gonna kill you.
She gonna kill you. So growing up, you know.
Like right now, I'm about to go out there and see how them boys jump right back in that pool.
Yeah,
I told them boys to get out that pool.
There was different forms of discipline, right? Growing up, my daddy, he was the disciplinary. My mama, she disciplined us as well, but she was very, mama was a quiet storm. You didn't know mama was coming until she got there, right? With my daddy, he told you in advance. And most times he gave you an option. He said, you want to get whooped or you want to get grounded? That's what he would tell me and my sister, depending on what it was. And I'd be like, man, I hated getting whoopings, right? And so I would be like, I want to get grounded. My sister, Tasha, boy, that girl, she was so mean as a little girl. She'd be like, man, give me this whooping. Like, she didn't care. She'd be like, and
I said, let me go ahead
and get mine out the way.
I need to get mine as time served and get on up out of here. I'm up out of here.
And she would always, you know, she was 6 years older than me. And she would always pick at me, you know, she would take the whooping last, you know, I don't know, a couple seconds, whatever it is. When you got grounded though, daddy didn't ground you for a little bit. Like you be grounded for the week, 2 weeks, sometime a month, depending on what it was. And my sister get her whooping, she going back outside. Now she throwing rocks at my window, because my window was upstairs, and she be throwing rocks, and I be like looking out there, because you know, you grounded, you gotta stay in your room. She be like, you so stupid. Why you ain't take the whooping? It already been done. I was like, I don't like to get no whooping, right? She be like, man, she come in the house later, look at you in your room. And you, once you make your decision, that's it. You can't go back and be like, all right, I want to whooping. Like, it don't work like that. But the one thing that, you know, but of course I did get whoopings from not just my daddy, you know, my mama, my granny, my uncles, my grandma, like, I got them with switches. You go out there and pick your switch off the tree, right? However, the one thing that I remember about my daddy, every single time that my daddy gave me a spanking, he cried. it was not, I can't remember one time that my daddy whooped me that he didn't cry. And after he sat me down and he talked to me and told me why he punished me. But he cried every time. My mom ain't never cried. She didn't really whoop me the way that daddy did. But you know, mama was one of the, you know, you talk crazy, you're gonna get popped in his mouth when you least expect it. But she would always, you know, of course, talk to me. But my daddy, he would discipline and talk and explain. And I, you know, as a kid, I used to be like, man, I ain't never gonna do that when I get older. I'm never gonna whoop my kids. And then, boy, you have kids. We had kids, you know, Troy said young. And honey, Troy used to get that little butt. First we get them little hands, and then get that butt. But after time, you start to kind of change. And you realize, like, I don't know if this is working, you know. And also, your parents change. My mom and daddy was like, don't whoop them. I said, y'all tried to kill me when I was little. But as they got older, of course, I think they wisened up too. It's like, you know, it ain't really, you know, the word is you spare the rod, spoil the child, right? And so I do get the discipline of, you know, you tap them hands, you get the butt a little bit, but the conversation is what is most important to me. And over time that has changed, but we get into it. You talk about your childhood, babe. Did you ever get any, get grounded or get these whoopings?
So I'm listening to you, and you said quiet storm. My mom ain't, let me see. How would I, my mom is definitely not a quiet storm. My mama was an earthquake or a tornado. She could be a hurricane. She could be, listen, my mama could be an avalanche. When she came down,
A tsunami.
she came down. The tsunami. Listen, I'm talking about, look, ain't nothing quiet about this storm. This thing, boy, come like you think the world coming to an end. Coming to an end.
Zay, he was working your nerve on his Zay.
However,
yeah.
Right, now listen, the talking and all of that, my mom would talk to me before and during. And when I say talking to you before, the before was, I told you, didn't I? I told you, and your confirmation is you confirming that, yeah, mama. I told you. And then afterwards, you know, I mean, during, she was talking. I ain't gonna have to tell you no more, Emma. And why
On me.
Why
I ain't gonna tell you no more.
Why that avalanche is coming down and you falling under the snow, the damn tornado. And listen, she was a tornado in the sense that anybody can get it. If you close enough, if you in the parameters, when she sound the alarm, you know how they got that alarm on the movies where the whole city hit that, woo. If my mama told my friends that I wasn't supposed to be doing something and that alarm started sounding and then they was within reach of the tornado,
anybody could get it.
Everybody getting caught in the storm. That's my mom. All 5 foot what? Mama what?
5'3".
Listen. Now,
small woman.
Now
okay.
Afterwards we're talking. Ain't too much talking after the fact. I ain't listening. It was more so laying it down. And it wasn't, I never had the option of being grounded or, I don't, so look, I keep thinking about this, and I was thinking about it when you was talking. Spanking, people don't like the words whooping, pop, all right. It was a time where I thought people would, you know, there was a time where you probably would think that you would be given the consideration that we all have an understanding that of what that is. So I'm kind of hesitating on talking about it or using those words.
Yeah, whooping ain't the right, I guess, term. But that's what we grew up saying.
No, if you come from our culture, it's okay, right? It's not abuse, is what I was getting at. It's not, we know the clear definition of what abuse is, and we know that the word whipping it stems from, and it may be offensive to some, but please understand that we're knowledgeable enough to know where the term whipping comes from.
I would have preferred a spanking though.
Yeah, but they all mean the same thing. So when we saying pop or whatnot, they all mean a certain level of discipline that does not extend to the level of abuse. For the people who need to hear that, we understand that. We ain't gonna go and be, So my mom was not abusing me in my eyes, right? She was disciplining me based on the time, based on the 80s, 90s, the circumstances in which we lived, the environment that we lived in, the state of the world at that time, where we were. It's a lot of things that played a role. So by no means am I suggesting that I was abused. By today's standards and what the world has suggested, you may or may not. I still wouldn't say so. But that's how my mom disciplined me. It was not a choice of you get one or the other. Now we called it not a whipping. It was a whoop, a whooping, right? That's what I would. Well, man, your mom, you getting a whooping when you get home. Man, she said she gonna whoop yo. And me and my cousins would come in and be like, boy, your mama just called. She says she gonna beat yo, and you know. And you them tears start coming to your eyes because you already know. And when you hear that car pull up, you already know what it is. My mama would come in and
do you ever get the phone call when they like, when I get home?
When I get home.
God,
that teacher, hey, listen, or that, hey,
wait till you get home.
You know that teacher to call me on my job. And I be, but mom, no, don't but mom me. When I get to that house, I want that room clean. I don't want nobody in my damn house. When I get there, I'm gonna be yo, and it'll be just like that. Now, we got 3 kids, right? Everybody know the story with Leah. Our situation. All 3 kids have went through. None of them have went through what I went through, as far as I'm concerned. Let me change it. I don't like the way that sounds. I don't like the way it sounds when you say that. The same level
of discipline.
Yeah. Right? I really feel like my mama did the best that she could do. That's honestly, I think that she did the best, and I think she did an outstanding job. Yeah, our parents did an outstanding job considering,
I'm a daddy's girl. I love my daddy.
Man, love him. Love him to death.
He probably didn't whip me on some of the days he should have.
And absolutely he did. Like he didn't. You know what I mean? Like you know, when you going through it as a child, you like, man, I'm getting a whooping for everything. This ain't right.
It feels like a million times. When you look back, it's about 6, 7 times.
Then when I look back on it, I be like, man, mama should have got me for that. I probably wouldn't did this. Man, where was she at? Like, you know what I mean? But I feel like Leah got disciplined different from Choice. Quest gets different. He gets disciplined from Choice and Leah. You grow as a parent. We've grown, right?
Yeah.
Quest has probably not had hands put on him since.
Other than popping his hands, like teaching kids to not touch, or telling them no, and you pop the hand and say no. I remember Quest though when he was about 1 or 2, the first time. He was doing something, I kept telling him to stop, and I popped his hand. I said, no. Quest looked at his hand, and he looked at me, and he said nothing for about 30 seconds. He just stared at me. Mm-hmm. He looked back at his hand, he looked at me, and he said, no. Like he told me, you don't do that. I said, wait a minute now.
Now that was a time though where a parent would have been ready to
correct that.
Yeah, even correct that.
Yeah.
But I don't think it would have been for, they would have called that sassing, right? You better get that boy for sassing. That boy talking back to you, you better get him, right?
He was a baby.
But he was a baby. And I don't I don't think that's what it was. And because we had experienced certain things with Leah and with Choice, we kind of evolved to something else. And I don't look at it as us getting soft. I think of it as evolving,
growing,
to where it's like it ain't necessary for this because of all the things that I mentioned earlier. The environment, the circumstances. My girls always tell them to take pride in what you helped us get to. You played a role into how your brother is being raised, and us evolving
as parents.
You were the
guinea pig.
The guinea pigs in a sense. With us growing up, us all growing up together, and also with us coming to terms with. We're all created different. That when Tab tells you that story, what I remember that goes with that story, right? God can make a human being a certain way, right? Mm-hmm. Quest was made like that. That was 1 year old. We hadn't put that in him. He was made like that, and so much that I remember when he was getting bullied at school. Right, he was getting bullied at school. I took him in the back of the house and was trying to teach him what I had taught Leah, what I had taught Choice, what was taught to me, self-defense, fight back in a sense, right? And he's a boy, right? So I'm making assumptions because he's a boy. All my assumptions were wrong. He went along with it. He's a good boy. He went along with it and had fun with it. We punch in the bag. And I'm giving him scenarios, and he's very active and smiling and all of that. We did this for about 45 minutes to an hour. Yeah. We're going back into the house. And I look at him and I say, hey. I said, so you know why Dad taught you that, right? He says, yes. Yeah. Yes, Dad. And I say, okay, so what are you going to do if somebody does this to you? And he looked me right in my eyes. With tears coming to his eyes, he looked at me and I said, what's wrong, buddy? And I could tell he was right. He looked at me right in his eyes with that big old Denzel Washington tear from Glory. That thing fell out his eye like this. And that boy, he said, Dad, I'm not going to hit people.
Yeah.
It's not
right. I get emotional thinking about it.
He looked at me and he said, I'm not going to hit people. And it just tore me apart. But it also awakened something in me that said to me, he's not living the same kind of life that I lived, that Leah lived, that Choice lived. He's living a different kind of life, which is called evolving. And he's not going to see the same world. There are going to be certain situations that present themselves because he's a young black male in this world, and I got to have him prepared for it. But at that point in his life, what I saw through him is that I need to be able to see what's necessary and not necessary, and where evolving and change has happened. Doesn't make their situation wrong, right? Mm-hmm. Because the times were different. You know what I mean? The times were different. Our situations were different. The threats were different. In other words.
But it also doesn't necessarily have to do with the world. Mm-hmm. I think it's back to what you said. It's literally how he was created.
It's how he was created.
Right?
Yeah.
He's still that way. He does not like the idea of fighting or hitting people. Like it's just not his thing.
Not his thing.
And even we put him in after that, we were so nervous because he's always been a big kid, and kids, for whatever reason, he was a target. Everybody wanted to jump on him and pull on him and do all these things, and he wouldn't defend himself, right? And so we put him in a self-defense class. And I think maybe the first 2-3 classes, he cried in the car. He was just like, I just don't understand why do you have to hit people? It's like, it's not about hitting people, but it's about defending yourself. So that
and discipline.
So you don't get hurt. He just did not like the idea of it. But, you know, I joke about my mama being a quiet storm, you know, as when I was younger, but my mama was very much so a very peaceful person. I'm very much a peaceful person. But I remember when I was pregnant with Quest, my prayer was like, God, please give him a spirit like my mama, right? Where he focuses on peace and love. And that is literally who Quest is. Like,
yeah.
he just don't. It's his nature not to want to be.
Yeah.
You know.
He. So what I was getting at was that in that's defense, but there's also a level of you having to discipline somebody else, right? When they do an action towards you. And what I learned through him was that he was saying in his own way, I don't have to do it the way you did it. Mm-hmm. Why, Daddy, do I have to do it the way you did it?
That's right.
There's another way for me to do it. And that's growth, right? I only learn one way. You put your hands on me, you're gonna catch these hands, right? You say you're gonna put your hands on me, you're gonna catch these hands. You get close enough to where you're gonna put these hands on me, and you say you're gonna put these hands on me, you're gonna catch these hands and possibly these feet. It's just, but, and I'm glad that he has what Tab just said, because my girls,
look if you buck.
they like they did.
Chance Brown. Choice is a mixture between me and Chance. You know.
But Leah
is
her daddy.
Nuck if you buck. Okay, she ready.
Yeah, so I'm glad, you know, in looking at him, and I seen that, you know, and in a nutshell, what I'm getting at is evolving. You know what I mean? Like discipline and how you discipline and when it's necessary to discipline. It's a lot of things that you have to take into consideration. You got to consider where we at, circumstances. I mean, all of them, the world, yeah. And then how did God make the person? How were we designed? You know what I mean? And it's something that I don't think that my mom, Tab's parents, that under their circumstances, they had a lot of time to consider. It was different. Different day and age.
And they were coming off of some very tough times.
Tough, that's what I mean.
Right, and to your point about the evolution, right, as we all have evolved, there's a lot of things that have changed, and then there's a lot of things that have not, especially in the culture, especially as Black families and Black people and the struggles that we go through. It doesn't make it right, you know, that violence will be a result of it, or how we treat each other. But it is a fact that it does play a role. Mm-hmm. I myself, in my own journey of change and healing, just coming into being more of a compassionate person. I've always been very compassionate and loving, but I also had to unlearn. Now, mind you, I think that my mom and dad, as Chance said, they did the best they could. And I'm grateful for how my parents raised me and how they disciplined me. And in the beginning of my, motherhood with Choice, I thought, I'm gonna have to, do some of the same things, but not the exact same, right? Now, Choice will tell you, honey, she got grounded for long term. I did do that same kind of grounded, but I was like, you got to go to the library. I tried to come up with different ways to discipline, right? And then that changed when we had Quest, because we, as Chance said, they were our blueprint, like our guinea pig. We were creating our own blueprint, trying to figure out, like, how do we parent? And then with Quest, it was like, this is a whole different child. Every child is different. You can't parent them the same. And learning to even be more patient. Because we had, of course, Chance had Talia in high school, right? You ain't ready, you a kid. You still are a kid yourself with fear, with no knowledge of self or life, really, right? You haven't even done enough living to even make good decisions. So now you're dealing with that on top of like, you got a whole life that you're responsible for. And then 6 years later, here come another one, right? And we were still, young when we had Choice, 22, 23 years old. Mm-hmm. And trying to also figure out, we in a relationship, we young, in love. We are it's us against the world, right? Nobody thought we was gonna make it. Like, we got all these other things, financially broke. I mean, the stress is here, you know? And the unfortunate truth is sometimes when you are in these type of situations, your children unfortunately get the result of that, right? They don't get the best version of you because you ain't the best version of you yet. And it's not fair to them. But when you get to a place where you can recognize, like for us, it's like, dang, which is why Chance always tells Choice and Live, man, y'all contributed to us being better parents. No, we didn't have it all right. We still don't get it all right, because no matter what, you're still parenting for the first time in each child, because it's a new child.
Mm-hmm.
But you learn so much as you parent, and you learn that, oh, you know what, the way I did it before, it didn't work. That child, and you also got to be honest with yourself on how that affected you and how it affected your child, right? Long-term damage is a real thing. And I've had in-depth conversations with Choice, you know. Sometimes me and her talk, and it's something that I'll be holding on to. I'll be like, man, Mommy, I hate that this happened. You know, when you was in high school, I could have handled that differently. And I'm holding on to it, and she'll be like, Mommy, I don't remember that. And I'll be like, oh. But it's bothering me.
Yeah.
Right? And so sometimes we'll hold ourselves to, you know, such high standards and guilt, and we feel so terrible, but we were still doing the best we could, and your child knows that. But on the other side of that, there are some times that your kid is affected and they do remember. And it's also okay for y'all to have a conversation about it and unpack it together now that, as you have continued to grow. That's all still part of discipline, right? Because the thing about discipline is it ain't just for children. Discipline is not just for the child. It's also for the parent. You got to learn how to be disciplined in your parenting.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to do that, and we still do. You know, I'm grateful that we waited and decided to have Quest. You know, he 10 and a half and 16 and a half years apart from his sisters. And he gets a way different version of us. And we're not in a rush, you know, for them to grow up or for him to grow up, or, you know, I think that the patience and understanding, and of course after living life and experiencing hardship and death and pain, happiness, joy, you know, full circle moments, like we change. And I think that all goes up in a part of us growing in our discipline and understanding as parents, as man, as woman, but as mother and father, it creates better versions of us. And so he gets that. And I'm so proud of how we raised our children, all of them. But I also know because of that and because of the conversations that I still have now, right? And that we both still have with all the kids now, they're going to be better parents than we are, right? God willing, if that's their, you know, the path for them, they'll know how to have a conversation with their children, how to discipline themselves, right? So that they are making the right choices for discipline for their children. I think there's not one way for everybody. I think everybody has their own way, but I do believe that the old ways that we were disciplined is not the right way now. That's my opinion. I think as we've evolved and as time has passed and the world has changed, more conversations need to be had with children.
So I think that more discipline, and this is just my opinion, is needed in the toddler stage, in the early learning process. There needs to be a healthy fear, right, of your child. I think that if you try to wait, right, and then try to instill discipline after a certain point, I can't identify age,
Right.
I'm just saying.
It's got to start early.
Right. So, in other words, I'm not saying that that you should not spank your kids. That's not at all. I think if the spanking should be addressed early on, and then away. You know what I mean? You're doing away with it. You shouldn't have to do a whole lot of it. While I'm listening to you talk, I wanted to be known. Though Quest is being raised different, right? We're very strict on Quest. He's a good kid, but he's still a kid, right? And
a young man.
And a young man, right?
A young black man that we got to raise into a world.
Yeah. Now, you know, there's been conversation between me and my girls where they'll be like, "Dad, you don't get him for that." But then later they'll come back and be like, "Dad, you don't let him do nothing. Like that boy got to do," you know. And it's just how we redirect the energy and how we apply discipline, how, you know, that kind of thing.
A new form of discipline.
And I think that we do, and what I've learned or what I took from raising them was when to apply certain discipline and when to stop applying certain discipline. Where it was a spanking from as far back as I can remember, or whooping, from as far back as I can remember up until I was like 15. I think my last time catching an L was at 15 years old. That's not the case. I don't think that it's just my opinion. You do what you feel with your kids, and consider all the other things that I said in the beginning. But I do think it's more important that if that healthy fear and that discipline is instilled within moderation, right? You got to understand these are kids that we're talking about. Then I don't think you'll have to deal with it later. I think that's probably what I've seen to be the most effective. That made me think about something. So I get a lot of, and I was just talking to JR about this, I get a lot of people, and it kind of goes hand in hand, that talk to me about, because they know I coach and deal with kids, and they see video, and they think, I think sometimes from what we edit and show, that I don't have the same issues as other dads or other coaches as it pertains to my son. And I was just thinking about, I was telling JR something that I wanted to do. A lot of, you know, husbands, wives, they'll reach out and that, you know, tell me what they're experiencing. They're harboring feelings from a previous child where they, you know, where they didn't feel like they did a good job at coaching them, or the two spaces, being a coach and being a parent or whatnot. I get it from women and men, and they're asking me how I navigate. And I think what I'm saying here, they go hand in hand. I'm gonna start doing the videos and showing y'all how I father Quest and how I separate fathering Quest from how I coach Quest. But a lot of it stems from how we started, right? I started because I failed with my girls. I'm not with doing that, waiting later to instill a certain level of discipline that you need for coaching. But with him, it was instilled early on, and then more importantly, I had my focus on what was necessary at the early stages, which was fun, and him wanting to do it as opposed to me seeing something that they wanted to, you know, do, and me, this is great for me, right? But how I navigate them, I'm not saying how you should, but how I navigate those waters is I make it clear cut, and I remember where we started, and it made it much easier. But I'm gonna be doing, I don't know what I would call them. I don't know. There's clips, I guess, just so y'all can see. There's just a time and a place for everything. There's a time for me to be dad, and dad first, and then there's a time where he needs to recognize that right here I'm severing that right now, son. Dad is always gonna be around, but right now I'm your coach, and I think it'll help. I think it'll help, you know, those people navigate those waters that are asking those questions and having a hard time, because I think it all hovers around discipline and how to separate the two spaces and be comfortable with it. And that's evolution. That's me evolving. That's me disciplining myself. And there's times where I'm sure you'll see where I have to refrain, just like any other dad who's proud of his son, because I'm in a coaching space. right? There's times where I gotta discipline myself and be reminded that my son is watching his dad talk to a ref. It's hard for him. So as his dad, I gotta be able to set a good example. There's certain things where that's gonna clip, where he's gonna be like, nah, that's my dad, and his concerns are gonna be different from that of a coach, right? So that discipline is necessary, and the fine lines. I'm gonna try to do my best and letting y'all just see some of it, right?
Yeah.
But
it goes back to discipline is not just for children, it's for parents too.
Everybody.
But also one thing you said was that you failed with your girls, but you didn't fail.
No, I'm just talking about in the sports. I
Right,
feel like I
yeah.
always feel like
Blackie Brown. Blackie said, well, he failed with me. He ain't taught me no discipline. What I was saying was like, it's just what you said, you evolve. You actually learn to adjust. Right?
Yeah.
So, a lot of times I think as parents, we think we failed at something, but you didn't fail. You're learning as you go. So you fail when you don't make an adjustment and you continue to keep doing it the same way.
Yeah.
But you didn't. You learned and you adjusted. So I'm so very proud.
Mm-hmm.
I've been able to witness you from boy to man, from, boy to father. And this has been wonderful to watch, and to grow with you in that journey. I'm grateful that you're my partner in this journey, because it has not been easy. Mm-hmm. Parenting, boy, some days as a parent, man, you sometimes feel defeated, right? You feel like, man, I ain't getting none of this right, and I know it's a lot of single parents out there, and God bless y'all, because I have many friends who are single parents, and it's tough. It's tough when you got a partner. Mm-hmm. So I know when you by yourself, baby, you trying to do it all with no help, and you may have a village, but in that house when it's just you and that child, my goodness, right? But hang on in there. You're doing the best you can. Remember that there's no right or wrong. There's just the way that you figure it out, and you make your adjustments as you learn, especially when you realize, I probably should have did that a different way. But being able to do it with you, babe, I'm grateful to have you.
I'm grateful to have you too. Hey, listen, I don't know where we would be.
I don't.
But we did the best we could do.
We did.
We
and
did our
still
best.
are. And we still are. And I think our children are a great result of what we have done. Mm-hmm. So parents, be gentle with yourselves and with your children. I know there's a thing now called gentle parenting. And sometimes you can still be gentle while applying pressure. Okay? You can be gentle while applying pressure, right? We still need that. Our children need that. They have to have some type of guidance and discipline to become great adults. We're responsible for that. We don't own them. They ain't ours. They're going to be their own person. But God has blessed us to be the vessel that they come through, and that we're responsible for bringing them up. Look, in the way that they should go, the right way, the best way that we can as parents. So make sure you keep that in mind, but be easy on yourself. Give yourself grace, and give your children grace as well when it comes to the disciplining. And so I hope we were able to give insight. Again, as Chance said, we ain't telling you how to raise your kids or how to discipline them, but we're sharing our story, and the hope is that, you take time to make sure that you're making the adjustments where you need them. And that's it.
That's it.
Yeah, anything else, baby?
Nope.
All right. Well, until the next time, honey, if anybody, grandma out there still getting the kids to go out there and pick their own switch, y'all cut that out. Man, I had to pick so many switches. Man, I got switches for Christmas one year, and that's a true story. That's a true story. My granny had them wrapped up, because I used to get a whooping every Christmas because I used to cut up so bad. But look at me now. Honey, very good. I came a long way. I ain't talking back or doing no more cutting up. Well, I still kind of cut up a little bit. But anywho, y'all going about y'all business, honey. Have the most amazing day. But even if you can't have a good one, don't you dare go messing up nobody else's here. Very good. Love y'all. Bye. Thank y'all for watching. And don't forget to click here for more episodes.
And don't forget to subscribe to the channel.
Very good.